Hello everyone, Litrostorm here, and today we're going to be covering the end of the What If Axel Survives series. If you haven't already seen the first 3 parts, then definitely make sure you do so using the link in the description and comments section. This part is going to cover seasons 10, 11, as well as all of the spin-off shows, so it's going to be kind of a long one, and I hope you guys are ready. Going into season 10, Hilltop is lucky to have Terra still as a leader despite the Whisperer massacre. And with Yumiko having proven herself by this point and the fact she's on the canon Hilltop Council, I think Terra would take her on as her advisor. Before we continue though, I do want to add some minor things I didn't cover in the last part due to how long everything was. I realized we had Beth and Fat Joey alive, but didn't do too much with them. I do think after the 6-year time jump, you could easily have Beth in a relationship with Cal, who ends up disappearing after season 9. And with Beth's death, it makes sense in-universe why he would leave the communities instead of him just mysteriously vanishing. Also, Fat Joey's actor, Joshua Hoover, lost a lot of weight since his role in season 7, and it'd be neat seeing him shed the Savior pet name in a physical way too. He totally could have hooked up with Laura at some point, since she did have some interest in Eugene, and Joseph has a somewhat similar candor and build. There wouldn't be a radio system to contact each other across communities since Eugene never went to the fair. This means they can't communicate that they found a Whisperer skin to each other. It also means Eugene can't warn Oceanside about the satellite crash, but I don't really think it made much difference since they only started acting once there was already a huge fire spreading. All the communities practice combat while at Oceanside, leading to everyone becoming better fighters. Of course, the Whisperer information would still have spread to all the communities after this initial fire event. Lydia is at Hilltop initially since they're the ones who took her in this time, but with Michonne opening Alexandria back up, Axel decides to head back there. I think Axel would want to bring Lydia with him since Henry mattered to Axel and she mattered to Henry. Plus, Alden is now one of the big dogs at Hilltop and he totally hates Lydia right now. A sizable portion of the people who died were at Hilltop, so maybe it's best to get her out. Lydia agrees and the two go to Alexandria after saying goodbye to Terra and the others. During the visit with Alpha, Axel would have been the one to stop Carol from shooting her, and he'd also keep a close eye on Carol when they hole up for the night. This means she'd have backup when she gets jumped by walkers, and she wouldn't be injured. Carol also wouldn't be seen as crazy, since Axel saw the Whisperers too, though it might still happen and they might think Axel is trying to cover for her due to their close relationship. After feeling isolated, Carol proposes leaving the same way she did to Daryl to Axel. However, he declines after entertaining it, citing that he now has Lydia to look after. Otherwise, maybe he would go. Sadly, Lydia still faces the same issue she faced at Hilltop, with Gage and Alfred being jerks to her. They jump her in the middle of the night, and Negan wouldn't save her since he'd still be locked up. After all, he never helped Judith this time around. Instead, it'd be Joseph who simply shows up and yells enough. No one would die, and Joseph would make it known what happened there. Michonne wouldn't leave Hilltop right away, since she can't learn about any issues at Oceanside, as again, there is no radio system. However, when she does eventually leave, it'd be back to Alexandria. But Eugene decides to stay at Hilltop so he can fix the wall. This would be the time that Eugene decides to make the radio system, since he finds spare parts from the Kingdom's transfer, although probably less than in canon since I doubt they'd take everything. It was most likely just considered junk before Eugene saw it. But with the new stuff from the space drop, it'd be Eugene's eureka moment and he'd get to work. At Hilltop, Terra takes the lead when a tree falls and causes commotion. This takes stress off of Yumiko, but Terra does feel like she needs to get around and help out, and doesn't want her to leave when Kelly goes missing. Maybe this causes some odd interactions where Magna doesn't like Terra because she's keeping Yumiko from her and there might be some interest involved, but it'd be shut down pretty quickly. Sadiq stays at Hilltop to help the injured people since he hasn't been talking to Dante over the radio. This leads to Dante checking on Rosita himself since he isn't worried about boundaries. When Eugene eventually does get the radio system working, he does end up talking to Stephanie just later on in the story. After finding out Rosita is sick, Gabriel sends a crew to extract Sadiq from Hilltop and bring him over to Alexandria. This would be DJ, Joseph, and Laura. They get to Hilltop and bring back Sadiq, but by then, Dante's subpar work has taken more of an effect on the sick people. In fact, Cheryl would be dead before Sadiq even makes it back to Alexandria. With Axel watching over Carol and also wanting to learn more information from Negan, he'd actually find Carol talking to Negan before he goes missing and slips away before she lets him go. Because Axel is aware of this, he wedges himself into Carol and Daryl's sweep for Negan. It gets clearly discovered that Carol lied about it and that they're looking for the herd. I'd love for Axel to make a perfect shot when the three are throwing acorns, and Daryl jokingly claims he wins since he taught him how to do that. When Carol goes off to do her business, Axel reveals what he knows to Daryl. Because of this, Daryl refuses to let Carol scope out the Whisperer's territory, and Carol says that it's not his choice. This forces Axel to bring out the big guns, revealing that he knows about Negan. Carol looks over at Daryl and he nods. If she ends up going through with this, Axel will go back to the council with this information. He's not going to let Carol destroy herself or risk other people's safety again. But Carol, after hesitating for a bit, tells him to go ahead. She then turns to leave and Daryl follows her after telling Axel to go. He'll make sure she's good. Carol is able to bring back a prisoner around the same time as Siddiq's extraction team shows up. But by then, Michonne is already fully aware of what Carol has done. She's furious and tells her that she'd throw her in a cell if they weren't using it for the whisper she just brought in. Michonne reluctantly allows Carol to interrogate the prisoner since he's her problem. I don't think she'd be okay with Carol hurting him, but the prisoner ends up dying due to the hemlock he was given by Dante. With Rosita being more sick than in canon, she wouldn't save Siddiq from his drowning attempt, but luckily we've got Joseph, Michonne, DJ, and Axel all around now as extra characters, so it's not a big deal, one of them could do it instead. I'm just gonna say it's DJ since that seems like the type of thing he'd do. Maybe he could give Siddiq a talk and actually give himself a character since the time skip. DJ then leaves and Siddiq goes to talk to Rosita since she's in bad condition. This talk leads him to realize the water situation and sadly Siddiq meets his demise at the hand of Dante. Rosita begins feeling better, confronting Dante and imprisoning him. Meanwhile, Carol and Lydia are outside the walls with Axel following them. He's there when Lydia chooses to leave, and Axel is absolutely furious at Carol now for that. After Siddiq's funeral, Eugene shows up at Alexandria with Luke, Connie, Kelly, Magna, and Rachel from Oceanside, saving Rosita from some walkers. Rosita reveals that Siddiq died, and Eugene is especially sorry for that. At the very least, they come bearing something that can help them establish communication across all communities. They came to Alexandria first since they're the closest, and it was right after Rachel showed up at their gates about a potential sighting of Whispers near Oceanside, so they're heading there next. Inside, they talk to Michonne about this, and Michonne doesn't want to leave when they have such a big issue with Dante on their hands. Gabriel assures her that he'll handle everything here and that she should go. She finally agrees, taking Luke and Scott to Oceanside with Rachel. She also allows Eugene to set up stuff at Alexandria while Daryl, Carol, and Aaron take the others from Hilltop to explore the info Mary gave them. Since they're going out there, Axel agrees to tag along, partly to be there in case they find Lydia, and partly to make sure Carol doesn't screw anything up. They're crossing into Alpha's territory again, which means they're putting everyone at risk. Oh, also I left the group going to check out things the same, with the exception of Jerry. In canon, Hilltop sent so many people because it was the request of Alexandria to help out with the search. Here though, it's just a crew helping bring equipment to set up for Eugene's radio system. I left Luke since he's gonna want to go to Oceanside to see Jules now that there's an issue there. I left Magna as she's been having trouble with Yumiko and both Connie and Kelly are gonna want to stick together. Plus, their whole crew is going with the exception of Yumiko. Jerry was the odd man out and he's really more of a physical help dude, so I left him out of this as I don't think they'd send so many people for this menial task. I suppose Axel is kind of taking his place here, so that might not be good. Oh yeah, also Gabriel totally convinced Michonne to leave so that he could watch over things so he could make the unilateral decision to murder Dante. Because Axel would obviously move faster than Jerry did, he wouldn't get grabbed by a walker when they're stuck in a tunnel. Carol still causes a cave-in with the dynamite and Axel and Aaron are forced to lift the entrance wood to the cave. Kelly climbs out immediately while Connie and Magna go back to grab Carol and Daryl. Kelly yells that there's whisperers and Aaron tells Axel to go help her. Aaron is likely going to be the stronger of the two, so he'll do what he can to hold it up himself while Daryl and the others make it back. Axel would help Kelly defend herself from the whisperers above while Daryl helps Aaron lift. Connie and Magna help get Carol up, but notice more whisperers coming up. Aaron tells Daryl to go, but he refuses. Aaron tries to convince Daryl to go, but he refuses until Aaron tells him that it might be his last chance, and Daryl finally agrees. As the cave entrance finally collapses, Aaron yells to tell Gracie that he loves her before meeting his end. And yes, it's for real, unlike Connie and Magna, since he's literally under the part of the cave that is falling. Everyone is broken after this, and Axel feels the most for Daryl since he lost Connie and Aaron. When Daryl refuses to blow up on Carol, Axel does it instead after he leaves, confirming all the things she wanted Daryl to say. A total inverse of Daryl and Axel's usual personalities. Axel leaves to help Daryl get away back into the cave while the others go home. When Axel catches up to Daryl, he's obviously pissed that he followed him and partially blames Axel for not convincing Carol to stay behind, and for not helping her all this time. But in reality, it's Daryl blaming Carol for her distance and himself for his tolerance. Right now, Axel's just as mad at her as he is. Well, maybe not that much, but still. She's totally disappointed everyone. He spent his time keeping an eye on Carol, and now it's time to do the same for Daryl. The two are able to dispatch Alpha's goons, with Axel keeping range using a crossbow of his own, while Daryl charges in at Alpha. Once she's the only one left, Axel shows up to back up Daryl with the walkers. This lets Daryl keep Alpha on the ground before Alpha sneakily gets the knife into his leg and frees herself. Daryl, now disoriented, goes after her, and Axel follows close behind. Daryl makes it to safety, now pretty badly injured, and Axel flanks around Alpha to keep him safe. Because of this, Axel follows the walkers Alpha lets inside the building they're in and turns to shoot her. Alpha can kind of see him coming though, since he didn't make any walker sounds and doesn't smell super disgusting, so she's able to only be grazed by the shot. Plus, Axel is looking for Daryl, who's getting jumped. She rolls to the side, kicking Axel in his leg and causing him to fall. She then turns her shotgun to him, which he barely manages to smack out of her hand using the crossbow. The two engage in a fierce struggle on the ground as Daryl barely survives the walkers she sent. Alpha reaches for her shotgun, but Axel stabs her hand, sticking the knife through the ground before getting up and grabbing it himself. He then goes over to Daryl, seeing him bleed out, and decides they have to go before he dies. He can't waste time on Alpha. He carries Daryl back home, leaving Alpha alone to die. Lydia later finds her mother lying there and says goodbye before following Daryl's trail of blood. She eventually catches up and they stop to let Daryl sleep so he isn't pushed too hard. When Gabriel leads a team out to disperse a herd, DJ would go with, while Joseph stays behind to guard Alexandria. Beta sneaks in, attempting to take Mary back to Alpha, only to get attacked by Laura. Mary wouldn't be hiding in Michonne's house since Judith isn't there to get her in. She'd be running in the street until she comes across Rosita, who is fighting a walker. Beta simply goes toward them and Rosita gives Mary a weapon to fight with. The two proceed to battle Beta, only to get destroyed, forcing Mary to threaten her own life. Mary leads Beta out of Alexandria before meeting with Gabriel and his squad. Michonne and Scott show up here too, letting everyone know the Oceanside issue was a red herring. Let's dive into that for a second. When Michonne goes to Oceanside and checks out the potential Whisperer threat, they'd never run into Virgil since he'd already be dead. He was caught by Oceanside guards who outwardly stated they wanted to kill him by referring to how they'd hung people for less. And it's assumed he was the only one they were worried about running around, not the Whisperers. So Michonne is good to go back home the next day. She lets them know Eugene should be showing up with a possible radio system soon and heads back to Alexandria. This means the Virgil Michonne storyline is gone and she never goes out to find Rick. After this, Rosita, Eugene, DJ, and Mary go to Hilltop to get Rosita treated and let Mary see Adam. DJ and Rosita vouch for Mary, but Earl and Alden refuse to let her see Adam. Eugene is happy to be talking to Stephanie again now that he's back at Hilltop for the time being. Daryl, Axel, and Lydia also show up and they have to start preparing for a battle. Tara again is taking charge over Earl or Daryl since she's actually the leader of Hilltop. Now we don't have Aaron or Luke at Hilltop this time, but we do have Tara, Axel, and DJ. Sadly, Judith isn't there to stitch up Daryl's vest either. Oh, I suppose Gracie would also not be there. In fact, Alexandria would only know Aaron is dead via the comms system. After the battle, DJ would be pulling an injured Tara away from the wreckage of Hilltop when he comes across Negan in a skin mask. The two recognize each other and Negan promises that it's not what it looks like, but DJ already knows since Axel ratted out Carol. The two dispatch the walkers and DJ asks if Negan is actually going for this goal to kill Alpha, to which Negan nods. DJ remarks that he hopes so, he'd like to see Negan actually up and moving again. They part ways with Negan finding Lydia. Axel could really be anywhere during this, as everyone regroups by the end anyway. Eugene is convinced to leave to meet his friend over the radio, even though Oceanside hasn't had the comm system set up. Tara would likely be a key player in convincing him. Magna, Kelly, and Rosita helped set up the rest of them so they can handle it at Oceanside. Seeing as Carol is at her worst point right now and she's nowhere to be seen, Axel decides to go with Eugene, Ezekiel, and Yumiko. He wants a fresh journey, to run off, only it's not with Carol like they thought it'd be. With Negan having been locked up this entire time, it'd be more worrisome if he'd betray Daryl after being named the new Alpha. But I don't think he would. Though maybe he'd be more careful, having Daryl assure him he won't attack once he unties him, only Daryl wouldn't agree. Hilltop is evacuated with the exception of Alden and Tara who scope out the horde. Negan would apologize to Lydia for kidnapping her since he doesn't actually know her this time around. Negan does some catching up with his old savior pals and DJ lets Negan know that he did good. As for Joseph, Negan would address him by Fat Joey, only for him to tell Negan it's just Joseph now. Negan lets him know that he heard about him getting a girl and he apologizes for her death. He knew her early on. Laura was one of the first people he met after his wife died. She was loyal. At least, reasonably, considering the rebellion. Negan tries to continue a spiel about talking about his wife or Laura or their time as saviors, only for Joseph to randomly pull him into a hug. He just says thank you, which could be for him killing Alpha, him helping Joseph during the savior times, him making change after all these years, etc. It would be kinda off-putting for Negan, but he's actually happy to feel some sort of embrace for the first time in over half a decade. Tara and Alden would get surrounded by the Whispers while scouting, and while Aaron and Alden were able to apparently escape gunpoint and take all of them out alone, I don't see Tara being as strong or useful in a fight as Aaron. And to be fair, we saw in canon with the Barn Massacre how her and 9 other characters fighting the Whisperers at close range ended up, and it wasn't very good for her. I think they'd get attacked and Tara would be badly hurt yet again, only for Maggie, Cole, and Elijah to help them out. Michonne would want to go out into the Horde to help with Luke's plan, since she's better at close range, and Carol should stay inside since she is really good with a bow. Carol does still go out once she realizes Lydia has left though. Joseph would be there to help Gabriel defend the building from the Whispers before Maggie shows up. Michonne would be happy to see Maggie, and so would Tara. Maggie would also be sad that Beth died in her absence, and that Herschel will never really get to know his aunt. Since Negan being a good guy is only just now being explored and Maggie is back, Negan would be locked up again initially, before being let out for labor. They've got to rebuild Alexandria now, and it's all hands on deck for that. Carol is upset that Axel went off, and that she didn't get to apologize or say goodbye. Connie would never be found by Virgil, since he's dead. With Aaron also dead, Tara would be out scavenging with Gabriel since she wants to earn her keep at Alexandria again. I really do see her taking on a similar role to Aaron though, and so not much would change. When Eugene and the others run into Princess, Axel would be advocating for letting her help them. When she reveals there's mines, Axel immediately regrets his decision to follow her, calling her the wrong kind of crazy. But they do eventually accept her into the fold because of Yumiko. In the first episode of season 11, Michonne and DJ would replace Jerry and Rosita during the mission. As for the Meridian expedition, we'll keep the dozen people going, excluding Dog, though we will switch a couple people out. I feel Michonne and DJ should be here, so I'm going to sub them in for Gabriel and Gage. With Aaron dead, Gabriel is the top dog of Alexandria aside from Michonne, who would want to be on this mission above all else. DJ would be able to lessen the hate for Negan in the group slightly. Roy runs away alone, but still gets found and saved by Daryl. There is no Gage scene since he's not there, and Roy was the only one who ran away. Overall, no major difference in the tunnels. When they make it out, they're ambushed by the Reapers, killing Cole and Roy, as well as injuring many of them. Specifically, Michonne takes the neck slice and stabbed hand Gabriel did canonically. Speaking of Gabriel, he's the one trying to get Carol to contribute back at Alexandria, since they already have beef about her putting herself before the community. Although Carol could easily rebut about Gabriel killing Dante himself and, him going on his own vengeance spree because he's angry. Luckily, Tara and Joseph are extra hands. Since Gabriel is there, Rosita would likely be helping him with stuff, meaning she wouldn't be outside the gates. However, maybe Tara is. Now, hear me out on this next idea, but I think it'd be neat to explore a potential relationship between Tara and Magna. We haven't seen Tara with anyone since Denise in season 6, and right now Magna and Yumiko are broken up. Plus, Tara has been there supporting Magna in her group since the start, even taking in Yumiko as her advisor for Hilltop. Now, I don't think this would be something for the long term, since Magna very clearly still loves Yumiko, but their initial chemistry would be great in my eyes. Oh, I also think Tara would take in Gracie now that Aaron's gone. Plus, with her losing Beth and Jesus to the Whisperer War and watching Gabriel kill Maze, she'd have the same nightmares Aaron did. Just more stuff she has to work through, adding to why her and Magna can't be. Gabriel would take up Aaron's role when they find the Whisperer hideout. With him being on a downward trend of mercilessness, it totally fits that he'd torture the one they catch. Joseph would be the one stopping the kids from playing with the walkers at the gates of Alexandria, which would be kind of awkward for him since he's such a nice guy. Now, with no Virgil alive to help Connie and protect her out in the woods or in the house with the Ferrells, it's safe to assume that she would meet her demise. So yeah, that kind of sucks. It also means Kelly and the others would find the house only to clear it and find a deceased Connie anyway. She's kind of like the Sophia of the new gen. Anyway, this really puts the final nail in the coffin for Magna and Tara's relationship, as once Magna tells Tara about it, she immediately gets it. Tara pulls away from things, knowing it's not right at the moment, and promises to be there for her if she needs it. When the storm comes, Joseph is able to protect Gracie in place of Judith, and Tara saves Gracie instead of Aaron. Anyway, back with our Meridian mission squad. DJ is with Duncan and Agatha, but Duncan dies. Michonne kills the Reaper that asked Gabriel to pray for him in canon. With DJ still being around and being a natural protector kind of guy, he's able to prevent Agatha from being bitten and they escape with the others. DJ offers to stay at the church with Alden, but Alden says no. From what they've seen of the Reapers so far, they'll need everyone they have to take on a whole town of them. Agatha being around to back Maggie at every turn just sets DJ more into defending Negan, though DJ knows they can't go back without the supplies from Meridian. DJ would be able to convince him not to leave as they need him for this. Michonne and Elijah show up soon after, and the Reapers eventually show up too, and since there are 2 additional characters attempting to flee, I'd have to assume one of them would be caught and die. Since Michonne is just in Gabriel's place, I don't think it'd be her. Our two actual extras are DJ and Agatha. This gave me a tough choice as DJ was supposed to die way back in season 9, but Agatha is also a complete nothing burger of a character, and when comparing her to DJ, that's saying something. I could, however, easily see DJ holding up the back as I think that fits for him, making him more realistic to die. But then I considered that it was confirmed in an interview that Agatha and Duncan were a thing, and Duncan is dead at the hands of the Reapers, so maybe Agatha would actually decide to stay behind, telling everyone else to go, and that she'll make sure they get out. So when Carver moves the rug, Agatha pushes open the trapdoor and starts firing. Carver is shot a few times, killing him, and Leah immediately fires at Agatha, killing her in retaliation. She then grabs for her radio, letting the squad know there are enemies here and they're likely escaping. Also, Carver is down. Daryl wants to stop this, but he can't. The other Reapers nearby are probably coming already since they heard the gunshots. He's just got to chance it by following Leah in their chase. Maggie and the others attempt to escape, with Negan trying to split off from the group. DJ goes after Negan, with Negan revealing that he knew no one would listen to him, but DJ would probably go after him if he split off. This gives them a better chance at surviving this attack. DJ scoffs at Negan's lack of care for the others, but Negan tells him that if they survive, they've got a better chance of helping the others survive too. Fish, Powell, and Washington approach our duo, so they hunker down. But the two are able to form a plan using some old savior code and tactics, and they're able to take out two of them, with DJ being caught and shot at by the last Reaper. This forces Negan to spring into action, killing that one and saving DJ. He helps his injured comrade up, and suggests they go to save the others too. DJ gives a slight chuckle through the pain as he nods and gets up. Meanwhile, Leah and Daryl finally make it to Michonne, Maggie, and Elijah, but Leah's outnumbered even more than she thinks when Daryl tells her to drop the gun. Leah does so, and Daryl takes it, holding her hostage. Negan and DJ show up too, with Negan saying they took out the rest. Daryl scouts ahead on his own, helping a man and his son before returning to Pope to cause a distraction, since he still has a thin veil of cover that is being a Reaper. There are less guards since Negan and DJ kinda killed them, so that makes the mission to Meridian a lot easier. When Pope deduces that Daryl is a traitor, he ties him to a chair and prepares to kill him, only for Daryl to fight back and escape. Due to DJ's recent injury, he'd be the one sniping from afar to keep the Reapers at bay. By the morning, Pope would be the only remaining Reaper left, and is willing to take out at least one of them before he dies. DJ wastes no time making his presence known, immediately gunning down Pope after he's sure he's the last one. Since Maggie hasn't gone insane in this version, Negan really doesn't have a reason to leave. In fact, his biggest advocate just took out the leader of the Reapers, so at the very least, they owe DJ for that. So this means Negan gets to stay with the group. The person who doesn't stay is Leah, since Daryl recognizes she won't change her mind. He doesn't want to just lock her up until she gets it like Negan, so Daryl lets her go free. Oh yeah, Alden is dead, by the way. At the Commonwealth, Axel would have an interesting answer to the "have you been arrested" question, if you remember his backstory. They all eventually get processed into the Commonwealth, with Axel becoming a mechanic of sorts. He'd be the only one not involved with Eugene's crime, since he's actually wanting to assimilate into this community. His job also requires the most actual work. Other than that, everything in the first 8 episodes about the Commonwealth is exactly the same. Lance Hornsby and Eugene then show up at Alexandria, bringing everyone into the Commonwealth. I do believe Tara would stay at Hilltop, since Tara would want to help Maggie rebuild it. She does feel somewhat responsible for Beth and Jesus' deaths, and knows both of them were important to Maggie. She also keeps Gracie with her, and she becomes friends with Herschel. As for DJ, he's just a hard worker and is dedicated to Alexandria. Plus, he's loyal to Michonne, who I think would stay at Alexandria in place of Aaron. In terms of jobs at the Commonwealth, we've got Negan and Joseph to consider. I think Joseph would either take up a normal job like Princess, or be a minor soldier of the Commonwealth since he was a border patrol guard. For Negan, he'd just be a gym teacher again, whatever that looks like in the apocalypse, as he probably wouldn't talk much about his time being a savior out of risk of being outcasted or hated from the jump. Without Connie around, we're pretty much just giving her plotline of investigating corruption to Kelly as a means of living up to her sister's work, so it actually fits kinda nicely. Michonne would really have the same interactions with Lance about the communities that Aaron did, though she might be more aggressive in her remarks. I also think Michonne perfectly replaces Aaron in Warlords, since she led Alexandria for over half a decade and is good at diplomacy. She and Gabriel go with Carlson on the Riverbend mission. I doubt Michonne is as persuasive to the leader of Riverbend though, since she likely wouldn't have the photos Aaron did. That was kind of his thing. Michonne would be the one meeting up with Maggie, though she'd actually find Lydia and Elijah instead. The two are about to leave Hilltop before getting Negan's message from the Commonwealth guy, but Negan isn't out here this time. Michonne tells them what's going on, and they go back to Hilltop to grab Maggie and some others to fight. It would be a long time to get to Hilltop and then go back though, so all the Riverbend survivors would be killed by Carlson and his men. Annie would act alone to save Gabriel from his captor, and they would be the only 2 survivors. Carlson sends all of his men after them, and just as they catch up, Maggie rams her car into some of the soldiers. This allows Michonne, Tara, and Elijah to take everyone out, including Carlson. They save Gabe and Annie, bringing them into the fold. Lance wouldn't have as much suspicion as he did in canon, since everyone at Riverbend is also dead. But he decides they go to the other communities and let everyone know there might be a crazy group on the loose who slaughtered his men. Since Herschel wasn't at Riverbend, Lance doesn't find his hat, and there isn't a big scene at Hilltop. Due to Annie's entire group being gone, Maggie just kinda takes her into Hilltop, telling her to keep her cool when they're there. After this, Maggie asks Annie and Lydia to take Herschel away from Hilltop while they ensure Hilltop isn't at risk at the Commonwealth attacking. Leah wouldn't hate Maggie specifically as much, but she did still lead a group of people to massacre her family. Tara essentially replaces Lydia here since she's still around. Daryl still kills Leah, and that's it for that. Annie goes into the Commonwealth like Negan did canonically. Oh, I haven't mentioned Axel in a while, but I think he'd be somewhat involved in the plot to expose Pamela via Ezekiel reconnecting with him. Anyway, Annie would likely have a similar interaction with Mercer to Negan upon first showing up, since she has a really strong personality. Things would be kinda awkward and harder though, since Annie would have to be told all the important people's names within the group and descriptions so she can find them. Once she meets Jerry and goes to Carol, it'd be kinda cool for Carol to see a super strong woman coming into the community with a soft smile, hiding her real strength. The 2 would be an interesting duo to see in action, and we would see them since they'd end up finding Sebastian. They'd have to work double to get him to cooperate though, since there's no Negan. Tara would leave with Lydia, Elijah, and Jerry since they're going to Oceanside. I also think Annie would go there too, since she wouldn't want to be at Commonwealth if she isn't pregnant. Tara would not be pushing as hard as Aaron was for them to keep moving, so Jerry wouldn't get injured. I'd love to see Tara talking to Lydia about her relationships instead of Aaron. How she left Alexandria and came back to hear her girlfriend was dead. If only she'd stayed. Maybe things could have been a little bit different. Maybe they would have had more time together. Axel, Michonne, Negan, and Joseph would be among the people sent to work camps outside of the Commonwealth. Axel and Joseph end up at the same one Connie did canonically. Luckily, they are found by Carol, Daryl, and Maggie, and Axel has an awkward reunion with Carol, as well as Maggie, as he hasn't even seen her since all the way back in Season 9 before she left Hilltop. Without Negan's connection to Annie, he'd have to play up his own insolence to set up his sacrifice, which I do think he'd want to do. DJ would also be at the camp too, since he was at Alexandria. Negan is about to be killed by a firing squad, but DJ steps in the way, leading to everyone else doing the same. Daryl and the others then show up, freeing all the workers and gearing up for the final battle. Annie is able to prevent Lydia from being bitten by killing the walker attacking her, before shoving Lydia back into the entrance of the RV. Inside, Jerry agrees to head back out to find Elijah and the others for Lydia, letting her stay inside while it's safe. In the gunfight with the Commonwealth, we don't have Judith or Connie, but we do have Michonne, Axel, DJ, and Joseph, so that's 2 extra people in total, and I think that gives us clearance to kill one of them, since it's an intense gunfight. I think Joseph would be shot in the initial fire, and Michonne would push Maggie out of the way, leading to her being shot by Pamela. Because it's not a child, the gunfight wouldn't just briefly cease, and it would continue, resulting in the death of DJ, who was trying to protect Michonne. But our group is able to escape, with Daryl carrying Michonne to a hospital. Luke and Jules both die to the undead, and Daryl gives Michonne his blood. The injury wouldn't be that bad since Michonne is a fully grown woman, and she'd stay awake instead of falling back asleep like Judith, at least for an okay amount of time. They give her to Tommy, who's able to keep her alive. Tara and Lydia rejoin the group, and they finally confront Pamela, and I really don't see a big change from this point. Rosita dies, and Negan still gets ostracized, but Annie is there to properly meet him and get to know him for the first time. Michonne and Maggie both want to find more communities and people out in the world, and without Connie and Judith, Daryl has less reason to stay around. As for Axel and Carol, I believe they would rekindle their friendship, but that would be all it is. And that is where the main show would end for this What If. Now we can address the spin-offs. Due to all these factors, we could assume Daryl Dixon still goes the same, and Dead City seems like it would line up fine. And last is The Ones Who Live, which has a pretty major difference in that Michonne would never show up. And while normally I would cover everything that happens in the franchise in just the same series in the What If, I think that it warrants its own video. I mean, taking Michonne out of The Ones Who Live is kind of huge considering she's the secondary main character. So this isn't technically the end, as you guys will be seeing What If Michonne Never Found Rick coming soon to the channel later on. And that is the end of What If Axel Survived. We really had a wild ride with this one, despite it not being all that different in the grand scheme of things. Judith, Virgil, Aaron, and Connie died sadly, but Tara, Axel, and Thorne all survived to the very end. We got to see some really unique interactions, and I am very satisfied with the majority of the story. Obviously, Season 11 got a little bit clustered with how many characters they were and how weird the final storyline is, but overall, the story was awesome to write. But yeah, guys, that is the end of the story. As always, a huge shout out to our members from the Walker tier, all of which are on screen now. We also have the Survivor tier, Davisville 84, Aiden Kearns, Chief Strato Constituent, and Tifu A. And lastly, our Christian Man tier, Willie, Zombie Warlord, Very Classy Demon, 23 Days Later, Helio Pelio, Coda Cole, Bad Opinion, Bashua, and Octavio Monreal. If you want to become a member and get access to awesome perks like early videos and priority comment replies, then definitely make sure you do so using the link in the description. But as always, tell me if you like this series, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.